this challenge of how, whether to, what to, et cetera, do about third-party platforms, mainly Amazon. And so we're very fortunate to have SJap, again, an ISBN fellow, again, present to us. She presented at our last conferences. She's from Emory University. And Darren Garcia, who is with the firm called Boris, he's an attorney who deals and who specializes in just this issue. And it's on the road 5 days a week, working with companies who are trying to figure out the challenge and the opportunity with Amazon. So, thank you, Sandy.
There's a little hesitation there. Well, hi everyone. I'm delighted to be here. As always, I'm sort of an ISBN lifer. Many of you already know me. And I'm delighted to have with me today Darren Garcia, who is going to tag team with me on this presentation. So let me start by just doing a very brief poll. Last night I was at a dinner and there was a number of people have already come up to me and said, wow, this is something we're really dealing with, and we want to know more about this. So how many of you are in companies where either by choice or not by choice, you are having to distribute on Amazon? How many of you are here? A few, okay, a few. All right, I see some more. Yes, right. I'll hold that closer. Can you hear me now? Better? Okay, that sounds a little like an echo to me, but that's okay. Let me, yeah, we do. Can I have the, okay, perfect. Thank you. That's what I need. All right. So we're going to talk about Amazon, and it's an issue that if it hasn't hit you yet, it will hit you, okay? It's just a matter of time. So as we think about third-party marketplaces, I've put up a couple of just some of the biggest ones that you're probably familiar with already. And when we talk about a third-party marketplace, we're talking about basically a platform where anybody can come and sell and anyone can come and buy. Of course, it's B2B. It's also B2C as well. So Taobao is one of the biggest platforms. It's the biggest platform in the world. They're doing the biggest volume. They're in China. Here in America, of course, we have Amazon, we have eBay. For those of you, if you're not aware of it yet, if you haven't heard of Inception is a third-party platform specifically for B2B. I know this company very well. They come and present to my classes, and they really have processes that are tailored for B2B purchasing. But not only are these marketplaces increasing, when we look at just the B2B side of the e-commerce, the numbers are staggering. 1.2 trillion by 2021, and as much as 13% of all just business to business, not business to consumer sales in the US will be online very, very shortly. So when we think about these third-party marketplaces, we really have to understand who's on these marketplaces, who are the players. And some of these players are legitimate. Maybe they're there by intention. Maybe you want these players there. These are the importers, the exporters. Maybe you use product liquidators to get your stuff out to market. Maybe you use professional resellers. And these are the people that maybe should be there. The problem these days is what we also see is this huge confluence of hobby sellers, individuals who buy at big discount sales and then resell. We also have, in the worst scenario, people who are counterfeiters, drop shippers, and maybe your own distribution members are unknowingly or knowingly participating in the Amazon marketplace, okay? And these are the ones that are really the problem. Because when you bring in actors like this, drop shippers, breaching distributors, counterfeiters, I mean, these are participants who have absolutely no loyalty, no care for your brand. They follow their own incentives. They don't care about how the brand is presented. And online in these marketplaces, as you all know, the number of marketplaces and storefronts available to buy from is just seemingly unlimited. These platforms are proliferating at an amazing pace. So it's this context that we're really worried about. And against this context, brands are having all sorts of problems. So obviously, if you've got counterfeiters, you've got problems with quality control, you've got problems with tracking the kinds of products that are out there. Maybe you're getting complaints about those products. If you're not mobile optimized, you're losing sales as well. But you also have these problems these days of lots of competitors, lots of robots that are out there putting false reviews up about your product. They're with too many products out there and no control, you may be having customer service issues. Maybe the customer service isn't good enough. Maybe your customer service line is dealing with issues that weren't caused by you or your distributors. And of course, with all these drop shippers, we have the problem of people getting products that aren't properly packed. They arrive in poor condition. All of this reflects badly on the brand. And of course, the problem with Amazon is that it might also be creating conflict with your own channel when you're seen as competing against your authorized distributors or wholesalers. You've got pricing problems. Maybe the prices are too high. I've seen drop shippers who are pricing products that they see on Amazon. They price it higher on eBay. They get the sale, they're purchasing from Amazon, drop shipping to people's house, people get confused. All of this stuff happens all the time. And so prices might be too high for your products. MAP violations might be happening as well. Prices are too low. That's probably the one problem that is the biggest and most common problem with these third-party platforms is just no compliance with your MAP policy. And this hurts everyone, right? It clearly hurts your distributors, it hurts you, it hurts your brand, and all of this goes to profits. Now, we look at all these things and we say, well, none of this is really new, right? Maybe you have had these problems in the past. We've always had the problem of gray markets in the past, and gray markets isn't really new. The problem these days, and the problem with these third-party platforms, is that all of this stuff is getting accelerated at a dizzying pace. So it used to be in the past, we had gray markets, but our markets were pretty isolated. So maybe you had some gray market activity in a foreign country, but it really didn't impact what was happening in your main market. And, it was oftentimes activity that was dispersed. You didn't really see this stuff. You could kind of ignore it to a large extent. The problem today is you can't ignore this stuff, right? We're all connected at a global basis. So there's huge transparency in terms of where sales are happening. Everybody's aware of it. The markets are seamless. You can buy anywhere easily. You've got a lot of bad and anonymous players there. Like I said, you have drop shippers, you have third-party players. They don't reveal their identity, but they're out there placing orders against your product, having things shipped, and shipping on your behalf. And all of that goes to the damage of your brand. You're having to compete against algorithms, pricing algorithms that are all over the place, web scrapers that are scraping your data. All of this, the pace of all of these things combined is what's making companies crazy on these platforms. And so this is the context, and this is really kind of the motivation for what we would like to talk to you about today. So today what we're going to do is I'm going to talk a little bit about what's the business case, talk about the channel strategy for thinking about how to distribute on Amazon. There's a lot that companies can do just within their own house in terms of thinking about their channel strategy. So I'll talk a little bit about that. And then that will move us into issues of channel management and then how to actually remove these unauthorized sellers that they're selling on your behalf. Now, this whole process here is a larger concept that is going by the name of e-control these days. And it's the idea of getting back your channel, controlling sales, and having more control over your brand and how that's getting presented. Now, of course, as an academic, I'm a little traditional. I see this all as being channel management, right? But in the marketplace today, The new buzzword is e-control because of the emphasis on the e-commerce aspect. All right, so I'm going to start first, talk a little bit about the business case and strategy, and then a little bit about channel management, and then Darren's going to pick up and he's going to, with the legal foundations, and give you some case examples of how this is actually solved. Okay. All right, let's move on. So again, I think the first thing we need to do is we need to think about and look within our own houses, right? So most problems can be solved within the firm in terms of thinking through our own channel strategy. So let me give you several things to think about, right? Several buckets. And you can kind of go through this at a very high level and think about, are these issues that are contributing to the problems that we're having on Amazon? So the first issue is your channel strategy. Now, most firms who are looking at declining sales, the temptation is to say the problem is our sales force. They're just not moving stuff, right? Or the problem is our distribution partners. But I will tell you, after like teaching distribution channel strategy for 25 years, the problem is often the channel strategy and whether or not that's right. So within the channel strategy, you can think about things like, you know, are the roles of the different channel members and players, is that clear? Have expectations been appropriately communicated? What is the right channel strategy here? You can also look at your promotion practice. A lot of things that drive gray markets are liberal promotion policies, too many incentives, too many volume discounts. You can look at overpaying your channel. Are you paying your channel fairly for the work that they're actually doing? What about unmanaged overstock? All of these things will contribute to channel arbitrage and diversion issues. You can also be looking within your supply chain at inventory management. Is there theft happening? Is there diversion happening? All of these things are very, very common, and they all feed gray market channels and the problems that you might be experiencing on these third-party marketplaces. A fourth thing to do is to think about not just your channel strategy, but your channel strategy relative to your firm's overall strategy. Do you have conflicting internal goals being set up? Do you have incomplete stakeholdering within the company? Or is it, as Jerry said yesterday, are you just too much in love with the status quo, right, within your company, that you're not able to think differently about what's happening on these third-party platforms? So these are 4 buckets. You can also, I would add to these buckets a couple of other things. You might think about things like, is it part of your firm's strategy to liquidate products on a timely or untimely basis? And how is that process working? Is that a process that works well? Do you have recalcitrant distributors? Are there problems, right, that need to be worked out in terms of individual distributors, wholesalers? What about your distributors' customers? Do you know whether or not those distributors' customers are actually competing against your channel and your distributors by possibly selling unauthorized sales on Amazon? And then, of course, you can think of foreign distributors and all of these parties that can come into play and get their hands on your merchandise as well. The other thing I would add to this is just, you know, a large part of getting your problem around, getting your hands around the Amazon problem is to think through what is the business case, right? For one thing, if you need resources to solve the problem, you have to first build the business case to your own company as to why something has to happen. Oftentimes, the solution to Amazon is not something that can just be done through your channel management group, your sales management group. It may require a cross-functional solution. It may require resources from higher up. So you might want to put some thought into thinking about, okay, how do I just make that business case? How do I start to quantify what this impact is? So let me give you some ideas. And by the way, if you look at this list and you say, okay, we do have problems in some of these buckets and some of these other buckets, I will tell you now that I am teaching a class coming up later this month on channel management, where in that class we will talk about a all of these issues in a little bit more depth. We'll give you frameworks for how to deal with them as well. But for today, in terms of Amazon, let's think through a couple of things that could be happening. So what you should be asking yourself to quantify and to make that business case are a series of questions. You can ask things like, are we losing the buy box on Amazon? Is it our brand? If we are the top seller of printers, is it our brand that's coming up? And how often is it coming up, right? Or is Amazon actually bidding against us? Amazon manipulates the buy box a lot. You can ask yourself, well, is Amazon the one that's discounting our products? If we've got MAP violations, is it really because of our authorized channel, or is it because Amazon's playing against us? Look at your high margin channels. Are we losing sales from there into Amazon? All of these answers involve numbers. Are our salespeople making a growing number of price concessions that are maybe unwarranted or larger than they were in the past? You can also ask yourself, what's the impact of the loss of a 1-star rating in reviews on Amazon, right? This is a very simple regression that you could run. Is demand dropping either through Amazon or through our other channels as a result of what's going on there? Have we been on the crap list at Amazon? The crap list is, I can't remember this. Yes, can't realize a profit, okay? And it's a list that it's not whether you can realize a profit, it's whether Amazon can realize a profit on your product. So if you're on the crap list, that also is a signal as well. Are your orders dropping in your traditional channels? All of these things are data that can be used to make the case, okay? That there is a problem and something needs to be done. At that point, you can then go to your executives and maybe request for a broader strategy. Now, here's how you can also think a little bit about what your options are for dealing with Amazon. I like to think of this graph in 2 dimensions. So on the first dimension, you could ask yourself, how much control over our brand do we need? Okay? This is the horizontal dimension. Do we need a lot of control over that brand, or do we need low control? Okay? How important is that brand equity? The second thing you have to ask yourself is, how much daily involvement can we afford, right, to deal with and to solve this problem? And those 2 dimensions will together help you identify an array of possible options. So, for example, at the highest level, you can consider a strategy where if you really need a lot of control over your brand and you're willing to be heavily involved, your strategy at that point should be to be the brand, your brand strategy should be to be the seller of record on Amazon. It's called a 3P strategy. So if you take this strategy, the good news is you've got the maximum control over your brand. You're probably going to learn a lot about how to sell on Amazon, because I'll tell you, selling on a third-party platform is very different from any channel you've ever sold in before. It's got its own process, its own expertise, and so you're going to go up the learning curve, and so that will be helpful. You also have opportunities to do things differently than you would in a traditional channel, so that also might be helpful. You might have a better chance of protecting your margins, okay, although you do have this cost of learning how to compete in a new space. The bad news, the drawbacks to being the brand of record on Amazon is, of course, you're competing directly against your own channel, which you then have to deal with. The setup costs, as I said, you have to learn new expertise for actually doing this, and maybe tax implications as well. So it might be viable. Here's another option. The other option is to go a 1P route. And this is basically to sell to Amazon. Now, when you sell to Amazon, you will probably stay off their crack list, okay? You will probably win the buy box. All of this is great. You can make use of the fact that they have amazing access. They've got state-of-the-art capabilities, okay? The other part of this, though, the drawback to selling to Amazon is working with Amazon, right? So it's an 800-pound gorilla, and do you really want to partner with an 800-pound gorilla? Because at the end of the day, Amazon does not care about your business, they care about their business, right? They've got arbitrary fees, they've got algorithms, all these things are constantly working both for and possibly against you, right? So you have to take that into account as well. I will tell you that what I have seen work well is to basically, so one company that I knew of has said, you know what, we are going to basically dedicate one reseller on Amazon. We're going to authorize that. They'll be a part of our authorized distribution channel. But then that helps take the responsibility and the expertise off of us. And it makes it easier for us to track our inventories because there's only through one reseller there. And it's easier to explain to the rest of our distribution channel that this is an authorized reseller on the platform who happens to have the expertise to sell on Amazon. And this is why volumes are going through that. So I have seen that work, and that is an option that could be somewhere in the middle. But basically, you know, this trade-off between how involved do you want to be, how much do you need to control and have that activity, and how much control over your brand is also needed. Okay, so you can think of this corridor as being basically a form of vertical integration. If you really need control over your brand, you need control over the process, you do it yourself. Okay, all right. And then with those pieces, now you have the business case, you've quantified it, right? You understand what your channel strategy should be. You've cleaned house and you know that your channel strategy has lined up or where it should line up. And at that point, then you can then go to senior management and say, maybe we need cross-functional resources for this. Maybe we need dedicated resources. This is our plan going forward. And this is what we think we need to do to solve this problem, right? This is the magnitude of the problem. Okay, with that, at this point, I am going to now turn it over to Darren, and he's going to give you a couple of examples and talk a little bit about the legal implications of some of these.
Thanks, Andy. So I'm Darren Garcia. I'm with a law firm called Voorhees and a leader of the Voorhees e-control team, which is a group that helps more than anybody else in the world that we're aware of, brands and manufacturers to retake control of their distribution and to protect and grow their revenues and margins in the e-commerce age that we're living in. So, you know, worked with probably, I don't know, 450 or so major brands and manufacturers on these precise issues. And, you know, you've always had the notion of product, price, promotion, and what's becoming just clearer and clearer literally on a weekly or monthly basis is the critical importance of control today. Because whereas historically it was important to get our products out as far and wide as possible, as widely distributed as possible, that strategy will come back to bite you very hard today as your products show up in an uncontrolled state on online marketplaces where Jeff Bezos has said his ethos is your margin is my opportunity, and where the platform exists as a giant billboard that sits atop the world that tells everybody what to think about your product and what to pay for it. More product searches, I think people looking for things to buy start on Amazon than on Google, for example. It's the world's product database. So you have to have your house in order there, certainly from a reputational standpoint, and a consumer experience standpoint, but even more, you know, things that turn executives' heads from a sales, revenue, margin optimization standpoint. And those that do hold the cards today, and those that don't are feeling significant downward pressure. So we're going to talk a little bit about the channel management, legal foundation, and then how do you deal with these unauthorized sellers? There's a whole multi-billion-dollar world out there that exists to take your products outside of your authorized channels, take advantage of a margin opportunity, and put them online somewhere with no investment whatsoever in your brand. And these resellers range from companies worth hundreds of millions of dollars to somebody walking around Costco with a shopping cart looking for things that they think will sell well on Amazon. So they come in all shapes and sizes, but they have to be dealt with. So from a channel management and legal foundation perspective, we're trying to do two things. We have to account for the reality that in a vacuum, there's nothing wrong with people buying and reselling your product. Okay, there's this thing under the law called the first sale doctrine. If you're a manufacturer, once you make and sell something, i.e. the first sale doctrine, you lose your right to control it downstream. Okay, that's just kind of black letter law here in the States and in pretty much every other economically developed country in the world. And so you have to be able to get around that, to be able to have control over your products downstream. And two, nobody has to follow your pricing, okay? You can suggest prices, you can have things like map prices or pricing policies, but at the end of the day, nobody has to accept those. And it's on you whether you want to continue to do business with somebody who won't follow your price or not. Which, in the case of Amazon or Walmart or any other national retailer who will just simply scrape pricing and react to a violation by another competitor online, whether it's Amazon to Walmart or Amazon to Target or Target to Chewy or whatever it is, the minute one of them sees prices being dropped, they will drop. So now that puts you as the manufacturer in a very tight spot, okay? Do we discipline that retailer, maybe the one who we call it first blood, the one who dropped first? Do we hold everybody to it? We believe that we need this policy to protect our brand, but all of these dynamics are lined up to box you in a corner. So the only way out as a manufacturer is self-help. Okay, Amazon's not going to help you. Your channel customers aren't going to help you. Consumers aren't going to help you. And in fact, they will exploit to their advantage any lack of control that you have. Okay, you're going to pay for it, whether it's in chargebacks, margin guarantees, overall loss of brand equity, decreased sales, whatever. It's coming out of your pocket. So, you know, we need to just begin this journey with some baby steps, and that's simply going out to your channels with, you know, what is referred to typically as the authorized reseller program or authorized distributor program or authorized dealer program. Some form of basic structure for your channels where you communicate perhaps for the first time or perhaps for the first time at various tiers of distribution that, hey, this is your lane. This is where you're allowed to sell my products in an authorized manner. You can't turn around and put my products on online marketplaces or non-proprietary websites without my permission. And if you're a distributor, I want your sell-through data. You need to pass down my policies to your customers. I mean, those types of basic channel hygiene steps are kind of table stakes today. And brands that don't have them, I can almost, without looking at the data, guarantee that you're being harmed by that. So these things are becoming very common. Back in the early days when we would do this, we'd have sales leadership and companies say, wait, you're going to I need to go tell my customers that they can't sell to whoever they want. And we said, well, yeah. And they said, well, I'm not doing that. I said, all right, well, we'll catch you in 2 years from now. And so the reality is that distributors, retailers, you know, people downstream in your channels that are all hoping to make their margins off your products are actually very welcoming and encouraging of those types of policies, okay? So you want to get those in place and communicate them effectively or why you're doing this. And that's also where things like your MAP policy, your pricing policy, MSRP, MRP, Colgate, whatever you're using as a company would come into play. So if you think about the world divided into authorized and unauthorized buckets, with your authorized customers being those to whom you're selling directly, as well as their customers who you are happy for them to be selling your product, they're subject to your policies and potentially to your pricing policies. Okay, so that's great. But again, we still have this whole world of, call it diverters, gray market, unauthorized sellers, whatever, that for some brands, I mean, just in the past couple of weeks, I've met with companies where they have up to 1,500 resellers of their products on an online marketplace. So it's often in the hundreds, many times in the dozens, and almost invariably more than 10. And when you have a situation like that, not only do these people not care about your product and they're selling damaged, expired, liquidated, you name it, product that they've been able to suck out of your authorized channels, when they show up on your listings, or we're talking about Amazon on an ASIN, the only thing that they have to compete on is price, okay? So they will drop their price. They're selling, mind you, very often poor quality product. People don't know who they're buying from. Okay, so they go to the lowest price seller. Very often that lowest price seller may be the one in the buy box where 95% or so sales on Amazon originate. And so now this person who has no investment in your brand, who knows where they got the stuff, who knows what it looks like, is sitting out there and on a $10 product is offering it at $8 and they win the buy box. So somebody buys that $8 product. Well, if Amazon has your products, Amazon's not going to take that for longer than a nanosecond. So Amazon will now drop its price to $7.95 to knock the 3P out of the buy box. So now your distributor who's running a little side business on Amazon says, I still have room in my margin, I'm going to put it up for $7.90. Third party comes in, Amazon comes in, other players come in. So the minute you have more than one reseller of your product in the Amazon channel, you have intra-brand competition that will harm you. Sales will be fragmented, your margins will steadily decrease, your authorized customers will start coming back to you asking for concessions, and that cycle will continue until you get rid of the unauthorized sellers and retake control. So, to deal with unauthorized sellers. So these are people, again, maybe they have a connection at the distributor. Maybe the distributor is getting a volume discount from you and knows that they can't move the extra volume through their traditional channels, so they know that they can move it on Amazon. They've got a real rich margin to play with. And it could be just retail arbitrages or whatever. It doesn't matter. But the only way to deal with them practically is you have to be able to take the products, the position that the products that these people are selling are materially different than your genuine authorized product. Okay, so this is the whole key to being able to have brand control today. Being able to stop the unauthorized sale of your product because they're not subject to your policies. Most people have no idea who they are or where they're getting the product from. You know, sometimes people call and say, oh, we want a MAP policy because we have all these sales on Amazon. Well, none of these people are subject to your MAP policy because you don't have any way to cut off their supply. And so this is the group that you need the hook to deal with legally. And the only way to do this is be able to say, they're selling something that is materially different than my genuine product. So right away, I want to be clear that we're not talking about counterfeit, okay? And the products don't have to be physically different. So let's just say, you know, Logitech here, who makes this clicker, has a distribution. They sell through one of the big electronics distributors. They sell direct to the Best Buys and Office Max and Office Depots of the world. And at a distribution level, the wholesale level, somebody is buying quantity out of a distributor and putting it up online at a lower margin, and willing to put it up online at a lower margin than like you can get it in an Office or Office Max would sell for. So Logitech says somebody's out there offering on Amazon this clicker for $39.99 and it should be $45. So I want to get rid of them. Okay, the only way for them to be able to do that is to be able to say that the product that the person is selling on Amazon is different than the stuff that's being sold in the Office Depots and the Best Buys, et cetera. So how do you do that? So as a manufacturer brand, you're going to have to think about how can we limit the benefits that come with our authorized product or the quality measures that apply to our authorized product and our authorized channels such that we can then go out and say to the third-party seller selling this clicker, hey, what you're selling is different you're violating my trademark, you're confusing consumers, and you need to come down. So kind of the classic way just to think about it conceptually for purposes of today would be like a warranty or a satisfaction guarantee or return policy or something like that. And if you start to pay attention as you kind of go forward in life from today, you may see warranties or return policies or guarantees limited to products purchased from authorized sellers, okay? So when you do that, you now can take the position that the products being sold by a gray market seller are materially different, and therefore you have an ability to remove them where none would exist. Okay, so the ability to say that there's a benefit that accompanies your authorized product that people care about when they're buying something is really the key to being able to do gray market enforcement. There's no other tricks. Simply saying you're authorized or you're not authorized doesn't really mean anything. It's what's the benefit that comes with your products. In terms of quality controls is another basis. You can, we kind of invented this a couple years ago, but it's a marketplace online quality control policy. So if you're selling your stuff online or your stuff's being sold online, you will be harmed or pay the price for poor quality product in the channel, okay? When somebody buys something on Amazon and it shows up on their front porch and it's damaged or it's clearly been opened or it's been returned or used, and there was something in all the major national press a couple weeks ago that somebody bought diapers on Amazon and they literally all been used when they showed up. That review that customer leaves will be a product review, okay? Meaning it's attached to your product, not the seller that put it in, but to your product. And as those negative product reviews stack up, it will hurt you in the key to winning on Amazon, which is your category ranking, where you show up in search. So as brands that don't have control, poor quality people get a hold of their stuff, they pump the product into Amazon warehouses without caring about it. People get it, they leave the reviews are about the product goes down in the ranking, sales get hurt, so it's all of this is very cyclical, all of the things that we're talking about. So you want to say as a manufacturer that, look, in the online channel, I need to have better control over my product. So I'm only going to sell myself through my own storefront, or I'm only going to sell to Amazon first party, or I'm going to sell to an exclusive third party. I know where all inventory is coming from in that channel, where people cannot otherwise touch, see, feel it before they buy it. I don't allow commingling of inventory in Amazon warehouses. It's sort of a default. Amazon will commingle all inventory of a particular product that it receives from various sellers into a bin and just grab the next one without knowing really where it came from. I won't allow anonymous selling. People can't sell behind anonymous storefronts of my products online. You can go down and be as specific here, but effectively you have to police the channel yourself, and nobody will do that for you. And when you do that, and you have that type of mechanism stood up, you will be able to then assert that anybody selling outside of your authorized channels is doing something that ultimately results in them being, to them not selling a genuine product effectively. So you have a legal claim. So in order to have control over the channel and to use that control both defensively, how do we deal with people disrupting our brand, and offensively, how do we best protect our brand equity and be able to go out when we're negotiating with Amazon, we're negotiating with retailers saying, hey, look at us online. We're the ones who are clean, who are profitable, who you should invest with, partner with, run the programs with, et cetera, because you're not going to get killed by online dynamics. So you need to be in this position here in order to be able to reap the benefit of a control strategy. That is to have your authorized sellers managed in a way to deal with unauthorized sellers. So, we do a lot of unauthorized seller removal work, probably more than anybody in the world, and this is the best method to do that. So you have to monitor the marketplaces, track sellers, be able to tell who's getting volume, who's getting revenue in the channel, which translates directly into who's going to be the ones that are disrupting your strategy. Then you have to be able to investigate to figure out who they are, who are behind these storefronts, who are the people, the businesses behind them, because they're all selling anonymously and think that they're protected by that. Third, you need to figure out what is causing this. Is it this promotional strategy you're running? Is it the fact that you're giving this particular distributor this margin? Is it coming back from overseas in emerging markets where you're giving emerging market pricing? I mean, we've seen instances in just kind of fast-moving consumer goods where there's enough margin between the APAC markets and some of the emerging markets over there and what they sell domestically for retail here in the US, that it can literally leave the port in California, go to Asia, never get off the boat there, come all the way back around and still be sold in 7-Elevens and a margin be made. And then the ability to enforce in a way that's legal and effective and efficient. And we typically use some form of escalated enforcement process, escalating enforcement process, where you find the sellers, ID them, cut off their sources if you can. If not, you still have that legal foundation to rely upon. That's that key to enforcement. And working this process until you can look out across the online channel, know who everybody is selling your stuff, and be able to say that my authorized seller online, whether that's me, whether that's a third party, whether that's Amazon, is getting 95+% of sales in the channel, and you're stabilized as a brand and growing as fast as you can. That's the story that you need to be able to tell to be optimized today, really financially, ultimately. So just real quick on some case studies, you know, these would all be household name brands that you would know. But this is a pet company, global pet company. You know, came out with a situation where there were a number of third-party sellers on marketplaces advertising very cheaply. They had a 1P relationship with Amazon, meaning selling direct to Amazon, and therefore were on the Amazon algorithm, which was chasing those third parties. Brick and mortar saying, hey, we're going to pull back your shelf space. We're not going to work with you anymore. Dropping prices. They try to map policy in and of itself. And you know, really what they needed was what is going to be our holistic control strategy, starting with channel management, channel strategy, and working down all the way through to enforcement, going to only one reseller on Amazon. And within 3 months, they went from 50% MAP compliance, meaning 50% of the time their products were sitting out there at the price they wanted, being advertised at the price they wanted, and that was only half the time, to 97% MAP compliance on Amazon within 3 months. The online retailers quickly jumped on the bandwagon because they're happy to sell as high as they can. The channel conflict resolved, and the brand health was restored. So, and these are similar stories. We don't have to go too deeply into them. Health supplements are a big deal. So light, small, high margins. So one of the big diversion categories. But they had tried a third-party strategy. The key to a third-party strategy is if you're going to go 3P, okay, you have to figure out a way that your third-party seller, whether it's you or somebody else, is not simply number seller 1501 out of 1501, but that you have an ability to shove them up the sales rankings so that they're the ones controlling 95% of the sales. So terrible MAP compliance at 8%, which just is a recipe for everybody coming back to the company wanting price concessions, margin guarantees, chargebacks, et cetera. So they, just began the process, implemented their reseller program. Anybody that wanted to sell online had to sign an agreement, implementing a satisfaction guarantee that was differentiated, saying we're only going to guarantee our product when it's purchased from authorized channels. And then very quickly, over the course of, 7 months, 8 months, moving from 9% MAP compliance to the high 80s, and then eventually up to 100, with their Amazon seller getting 99% of sales. So, this, and these are all, this is not Apple Computer or Bose stereos or brands that have had such tight control historically. I mean, these are all companies very widely distributed that realized how much harm they were experiencing by not having control and then just taking the steps necessary to do it. So we included these because even for mass distributed brands, I was at a conference in Belgium last summer where competition laws in Europe are very strict and whatnot, and the Louis Vuittons and the Cartiers and whatnot have always sort of distributed very tightly, but everybody else just sort of threw up their hands. And there was a company that made potato chips, and he said, well, what can I do? I'm being hammered by this. And the consensus of the group was you need to tighten up your distribution, rein in control of Amazon, and punish anybody that steps out of line. I mean, so we're down to that type of mass market good that needs this type of control strategy today. So that's kind of the end of my piece of it. So imagine we have time for questions. Sandra, I'll just give it back to you. Yeah.
When you take this enforcement action against the resellers who are selling on Amazon, does Amazon jump in their camp or in your camp?
No, I mean, Amazon is, we've done probably 70,000 enforcement actions. Amazon is completely agnostic to it. If any of you in the room or people in your organizations deal with Amazon and they go to Amazon and say, we're experiencing this, we need your help with that, or, you know, we have unauthorized sellers, and Amazon say that's your distribution problem and you have your own remedies. So they're agnostic and frankly have to be, given the position that they've taken that we're just a platform. And so the minute that they would get more involved in calling balls and strikes on that, I think that they would, they'd lose some of that. So they don't really get involved.
I think the only place where you do really see them get involved is, the only place where you really do see Amazon get involved is around like health products. So vitamins, pharmaceuticals, things like that, things where people's lives could really be at risk. Then they will be a little bit more responsive. That's what I've heard from the authorities. Yeah,
counterfeit product, then they are relatively proactive. But if it's simply diverted gray market goods, which is what's most disruptive to companies, they don't get involved in that.
And that's the policy of a lot of these platforms, right? Even the platforms in the sharing economy. When we look at Uber, we look at Airbnb, they're sort of saying like, you know, we're just like executing a transaction, right? We don't have responsibility for that, which is, you know, becoming increasingly debatable, right? But other questions? Yes, Jimmy.
What action was taken to authorize suppliers to be able to sell on Amazon?
Yeah.
Amazon doesn't acknowledge.
Well, Amazon doesn't acknowledge that. That's true, but it's the company's decision to not sell direct to Amazon and simply use as its Amazon strategy a third-party seller. So those entities will come into the company, or companies will stop their first-party relationship with Amazon and simply be involved in the platform through a third-party seller.
But then what happens if it's another third-party seller?
Well, that's right. That's why you need to be able to enforce against them. So that's when you have to have the appropriate foundation and then leverage that to remove those sellers so that you can push your authorized customer up. The advantage being that you now have control over your pricing, over who's selling in the channel, the inventory, all of those sorts of things. But to your point, the challenge being you do have to self-help and move your own seller up. Yeah.
In your experience, even if you have authorized, unauthorized sellers on Amazon, there's plenty of something.
Right.
As a manufacturer, is there anything you can do? Is there any way you found it to be successful to own the message and to own the contents of that page without actually selling?
Well, yeah, I mean, you can maintain control of a brand registry, which is the Amazon tool that if you're the trademark owner, you get to control the content page. Okay, and then somebody else just can't come in and like screw around with your images, your descriptions, and those sorts of things. It doesn't do anything to remove anybody, but you can at least hold the ASIN, right?
Let me just underscore there that the key thing is your quality control process, right, over distribution is what makes the difference here, right? So if you've got a policy in place that says either we're going to stand by products behind authorized distributors, or if the product has to be handled in a certain way, that's the standing upon which you can then remove anybody unauthorized. But it has to come from you first. So you have to put those controls in place if you want to be able to enforce from then on. Are there any other questions? Yeah.
Some of the reason people do Amazon is also that they're trying to ship shipping to ensure that customer experience. Do you see growth of more services like ShopRunner, which is a service across multiple platforms? So the brand still manages everything from their shipping service like Shop Market there, away from their lunch, now they're solely on their website. You see that growing more?
You want to speak to this or otherwise?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, well, so the last mile, right, is a huge war in and of itself, right? And I think this is something where we're seeing a lot of movement. We will be seeing a lot of movement and just how to get this, and how to make this work. Right? In America, it's incredibly expensive. I think more and more they are both, whether it's FedEx or UPS, I hear from them all the time that they're trying to solve this problem and they're scrambling to do so. I think it remains to be seen. I think they would, you know, the movement of products at that very last mile, whether it's in the store, whether it's through these services, I mean, all things are possible at this point. I think that it's hard to tell yet what's going to happen, but it has to be something that is scalable, right, and economically efficient. And both of those things are very hard to do throughout America, right? Some regions you can do that, but not everywhere.
You want to add?
Well, yeah, I guess I would just add, I mean, we hear time and again that companies are wanting to strategically invest and grow more in their own D2C sites. And obviously the fulfillment aspects of that are a challenge, particularly when you're up against Amazon's global reach. So I think yes, the answer to your question is yes, but I do think that the marketplace channel will be in the driver's seat for the next decade at least, and that companies are, you know, while they're building that D2C strategy, it won't get off the ground if the products are, you know, significantly cheaper and more widely available on the marketplace.
Any last questions? Okay, I know everybody's probably thinking about lunch. Let me just leave you with two resources. Number one is a working paper that I have with the Lori's team. You can make that available. I'll send a copy to Lori, and that'll give you a lot of what we talked about in more detail. And the other resource that we have here, Lori reminded me, is she has a few copies left of my book. So if you're interested in issues related to partnering, working with partners, we've got 4 copies up here. They're signed, first come, first serve. So with that, I'm going to turn it back to Lynn.
Thank you guys for being super flexible and hanging with us there. Big applause, please. Again, I want to thank Milton for being super flexible with us and the weather doing whatever it's doing. So we have lunch has been set up in the back. And we're not as far behind as you can imagine we might be after all of these back and forth.